Today we're looking at the level of English around the world. The results are in. Education First is a massive company that works in the English language teaching industry, and they have completed their English Proficiency Index report for 2021. In this test, they tested over 2 million people over 100 different countries. 21 in Africa, 20 in Latin America, 24 in Asia, 12 in the Middle East, and 35 in Europe, which is the most. 53% of the test takers were female and 47% of the test takers were male. Before we go any further, this test is only of people's reading and listening skills. And if a country or region could not produce a minimum of 400 test takers, then they were not included in the report. I think it's important to say at this point that only people who are interested in their own level of English took this test. We're going to be visiting every continent and finding out which country has the best level of English. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which country has the best level of English in the world. Let's start with Europe, and let's go through the top 10 countries in Europe which have the best level of English. Starting with Croatia, closely followed by Finland, Sweden, Portugal, Belgium, Norway, Denmark, Austria, and number 1 is the Netherlands. The 3 countries with the lowest level of English in Europe is Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Armenia. The country with the lowest level of English, which is in traditional Europe, is actually Russia. Now, the country that has improved their English the most since the last time this report was made is Ukraine. So, congratulations, Ukraine.
Вітаю!
And the country that has dropped the most since the last report is the Czech Republic. What's going on, Czechs? Where I live in Spain, it is actually up 3 points compared to last year's report. But Spain is still below average in Europe. The average level of English in Europe is about a B2 or C1, which according to the report is 552. So if you are living in Europe and you are studying English, then if you're not at a B2 or C1 level with your reading and listening skills, then you would be considered as below average. Moving on to Asia, let's find out who has the best level of English in Asia, starting with the top 10. And number 10 is Pakistan. Number 9 is Nepal. Number 8 is Macau. Number 7 is China. Number 6 is India. Number 5 is South Korea, followed by number 4, which is Hong Kong. Number 3 is Malaysia. Number 2 is the Philippines. And number 1 is Singapore. The 3 countries with the lowest level of English in Asia are Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Thailand. The 3 countries that have improved the most since the last report are the Philippines, Tajikistan, and Singapore. The average level of English, according to the test, is a B2 or B1. This is because the average in Asia is 504 points. So, again, if you're living in Asia and you're studying English, then if your level of English is not a B1 or a B2, then you would be considered to be below average. Now, don't get down Asia. This test has only been testing in Asia for the last 3 years, and it actually is the continent that has improved the most over the last 3 years. Now, let's take a look at Latin America, starting with the top 10 countries with the best level of English, starting with number 10, which is Honduras. Number 9 is El Salvador. Number 8 is Uruguay. Number 7 is Chile. Number 6 is Paraguay. Number 5 is the Dominican Republic. Number 4 is Costa Rica. Number 3 is Cuba. Number 2 is Bolivia. And the best English-speaking country in Latin America is Argentina. The 3 countries with the lowest level of English in Latin America are Haiti, Mexico, and Ecuador. But stop. Ecuador, you're actually the country that's improved the most since the last report, so you're obviously doing a good job. The 3 other countries that have also improved a lot since the last report are El Salvador, Peru, and the Dominican Republic. And although Argentina and Costa Rica are in the top 5, those 2 countries have actually dropped their level of English since the last report. One of the problems in Latin America with English is that there is a big gender gap between men and women. Around the world, on average, there is little difference between the proficiency of women and men. However, in Latin America, it has one of the biggest differences. So, if you're living in Latin America and you're studying English, then if you have an English level that is a B2 or upper intermediate, then you can consider yourself above average. The penultimate continent we're going to be taking a look at is Africa. Now, the report has never been able to fully test the continent of Africa. So let's take a look at the top 10 countries in Africa with the best level of English. Number 10 is Algeria. Then number 9 is Morocco. Number 8 is Mozambique. Number 7 is Tanzania. Number 6 is Ethiopia. Number 5, Tunisia. Number 4 is Ghana. Then number 3 is Nigeria. Number 2 is Kenya. And number 1, well, you probably guessed it, South Africa. The 3 countries with the worst level of English in Africa are South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda. Now, the 4 countries that have improved the most from the last report are Tunisia, Nigeria, Morocco, and Algeria. And the countries that have dropped in the level of English the most are Rwanda, Angola, and Sudan. The average level of English in Africa in this test was 489 points, which is between a B1 and a B2, so between an intermediate level and an upper intermediate level. The average in Africa, along with Latin America, is below the world average. But if you are living in Africa and you are studying English and you are currently studying at an upper intermediate level, so a B2 level, then you can consider yourself to be above average. Now, the final continent we're going to be taking a look at in this video is the Middle East. Now, compared to other continents, we do not have as many countries or regions that were tested. So let's just focus on the top 5 countries that have the best level of English in the Middle East. Starting with number 5, which is Qatar. Number 4 is Bahrain. Number 3 is the United Arab Emirates. Number 2 is Iran. And the country with the best level of English in the Middle East is Lebanon. The 3 countries with the lowest level of English in the Middle East are Yemen, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. Since the report was done last year, the country with the best improvement since the last report is Bahrain. And the 2 countries that have dropped in the level of English the most are Jordan and Kuwait. Latin America and the Middle East have something in common, and it's not positive, but the gender gap is just as big in the Middle East as it is in Latin America, where men have a much higher proficiency in English than women. Also, the level of English in young people in the Middle East is extremely low compared to other continents. The average level of English in the Middle East is 445 points according to the report, which is a B1. This is the lowest average in the whole world. But if you're living in the Middle East and you are studying English, then if you are studying at a B1 or B2 level, so an intermediate and upper intermediate level, then you would be above average. Now, obviously, English is the lingua franca of the world, but why do you need to improve your English? Let's look at a few conclusions from this report. If you're planning to work in information technology, marketing, engineering, for example, then you're going to need a good level of English. So, for example, if you'd like to be a market research analyst or an advertising director or even an engineer, then in an interview for those jobs, you're probably going to need to demonstrate your level of English and use English in those jobs on a daily basis. If your country has a medium to high level of proficiency in English, this means that your country is going to be in a better position to tackle the problems that we're facing with climate change. This is because the communication between countries on issues like this is done in English. Another really important conclusion from this report is that if your country has a medium to high level proficiency in English, then it means that your country is going to be more innovative. So it's now time to tell you which country in the world has the best level of English. You've probably guessed it by now. The country is the Netherlands. The Netherlands scored 663 points, which is over 150 points above the world average. So we've come to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed looking across the world at all the different levels of English this year in 2021. If you are from any of the countries that we've mentioned in this video, then I'd love to hear back from you in the comments section below. Let me know if you agree with the findings in this report.